welcome to the Promethean podcast. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Josh.
And we're here tonight talking with our good friend, Michael Green, a.k.a. Persia Grai, best rapper in the world.
Hello.
Michael, thank you for coming on tonight. I wanted to start off this pod on a good note, so don't fuck it up.
All right. I'll try my best.
Well, it's Friday, so that's a good note.
Yeah.
For some. Some of us have to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Number one, how you been?
I've been great. How
good?
have you been?
I've been good. I've been busy, but happy, which is always a plus.
Happy is
Glad.
good.
You seem happy.
I do seem happy. Do you have any new music in the works? Or are you writing anything?
Yeah. I've been writing lately. Been writing a lot. So
The world needs it.
I'm gonna put it out.
Do you know okay, so we've been talking, you and I, for quite some time about your own personal journey on like your personal growth and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Make that into music.
You know,
Take that experience and just pour it out on a page and write.
you're actually not the first person to say that to me. So
Well, I'm the first one on record.
you are the first one on record to say that to me. So
It's official.
yeah, that's
it's
a good
official.
idea.
You heard it here first.
I will do that. Without a doubt.
You know, I know we only have 12 followers, but we can share your music. We can share your music on our podcast and get your name out there to people that already listen to you. But
12 can turn to 12 million relatively quickly.
yeah, but we got to pee on people.
Yeah, I know.
That's the key, yeah.
Yeah, but then we go to jail 20 years later. Oh, R. Kelly.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a whole
man.
different scenario. He wasn't doing it during shows.
Yeah, he wasn't doing it.
Yeah,
He wasn't
that
at
was
a
a
metal
different.
show.
That was in the VIP room and champagne room and stuff,
Yeah.
That's called the VIP room.
Yeah, for sure. VIPP.
That's gross.
All right. Well, I look forward to anything new that you come out with.
Thank you, brother.
I can't wait.
I appreciate it.
You came on here with a specific purpose
Mm-hmm.
because you got a hefty topic to drop on us, son.
Yeah.
Like so much to where it needs to be a documentary and not an hour-long pod.
Yeah, I mean, just reading through the first 5 or 6 pages, my mind was just, I had to pick my brain up off my desk and then try to piece it back together, and
Yeah.
I literally just had to step away. After the first 5 or 6 pages, I was like, I need to just step away from this for a few minutes,
Yeah.
and just collect what everything that I just read. You know what I mean? It was incredible.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny in a way. When I first started reading it, I told my wife, and she was like, basically, what the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Not to say anything against her, it was just, I was picking up all this information, and I was just regurgitating it,
Yeah.
and I had literally no understanding of what I was talking about. So then, a couple days later, I talked about it again, and it actually made sense. But that was just on one topic, though.
Right.
There is so much in that document.
Yeah.
Tell us about what document we're fucking talking about. That way people know what we're talking about.
So apparently not even apparently, the CIA put out a document saying it was called Analysis of the Gateway Experiment, I believe.
I believe the gateway process is what they kept calling it.
Yeah. And it basically, they say that the Earth that we know is a hologram, and that astral projection is real, and that you can access higher states of mind through meditation and a bunch of different practices that make you extremely dangerous.
Now, this is not an article. This is
This is a declassified document.
Mm-hmm.
From
Yeah, an actual
2003.
Yeah, an actual study, right?
Yeah.
So what I gathered, the document was written in '83. I thought it was older than that, but I did backtrace some stuff, and it was written in 83 by a Lieutenant Colonel McDonnell, and it was declassified in September of 03.
Yeah.
And the number one, why didn't that guy write books? The way that guy writes, literally writes, like the book that I'm letting you borrow from Brian Greene. That's still kind of funny. It's the same last name as yours.
Right.
You're going to see the way that guy writes. Like, you can tell his mind's on a different level.
Right.
Like, some higher intelligence that I'll never attain. But, like, that lieutenant colonel who wrote that 29-page document wrote as if, like, this guy might actually be on a different plane.
Wow.
Because of the way this dude was writing.
Yeah.
And just, like, I don't know, you could tell, dude's super intelligent.
Yeah.
So it wasn't written by some boot idiot, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's from the government. Like, it was declassified document from the government.
That's what's, like, really weird to me is that I never heard about it until you sent it to me.
Yeah, and I only heard about it because I was like fucking scrolling on Facebook and I saw a meme and it was like, I love how the CIA released a document saying that the universe is a hologram and astral projection is real, and no one even said anything about it. Like, that was just like when they I think it was the FBI that acknowledged UFOs and they just didn't, no one even cared. Like,
yeah, so like 2 years ago, it was about 2 years ago now. Shit, time flies. You and I talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting on the couch with my wife. We're watching TV, and I think it was like a commercial. And I like went. I don't remember if I had Facebook then. I haven't had Facebook in a while, but I went on social media and I saw like people were reposting. I think it was the Washington Post, and they're like, "Hey, Pentagon releases official documentation, officially stating that UFOs are completely real. And here's a video from the United States Navy. Like, this is our documentation that we're talking about. Like, here's an example." And I remember I stopped the video of what we were watching, and I looked at her. I was like, "Why in the fuck are we not hearing about this anywhere? Like, why? Like, these are things that I'm sorry that I grew up thinking that, wow, if this was ever proven to be real, that would blow my fucking mind.
Right.
Like, that would be like life altering in a way. But then, like, nobody cared. People were like, I mean, wasn't that at the beginning of COVID?
Yeah.
Or was it before?
It was.
Wasn't it during election?
Was it during election?
Or was it before that?
I feel like it was during COVID because, like, I think it was during COVID because, like, they did that and then no one gave a fuck, like, because something else was going on.
It was like during like the very beginning of COVID when it hit the States.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, who is not caring about
UFOs?
The government saying that, like, hey, everyone, you've been right all along. UFOs are real, and people were like, wow.
Yeah, I mean that was in. I want to say it was June of last year.
Was it?
So it's been a little over a year. Yeah, because it was post COVID. COVID was definitely here in the States at that point.
Okay.
But I mean, let's be honest. Like, everything that the government releases is, I mean, there's a reason. There's a timing. There's a, you know what I mean. It's a look over here because of this, right? And so,
I wonder if that happened. Like, what I should have done is look back around September of 03 to see what was going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there was like the internet wasn't even a fucking thing.
It was, but it's
right, and that I think is probably a big reason why something like this didn't gain traction. You know what I mean?
Right.
Is that there was probably just only people like in the community or in the scientific community or, you know, in the conspiracy theory communities probably knew anything about it, right? And they couldn't just post it to Facebook to fucking show everybody, right? I mean, you know, and so it was very, you know, back then I think a lot of things were very like underground, you know, for lack of a better term, right? Where it was one of those like passed in an email from one person to another or fucking printed out 77 pages and handed to somebody or mailed, you know, like.
Right.
So I think the chances of things like that to spread, just didn't. It's not nowhere near what it is today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally fucking do whatever you want on the internet now, and it trends. I mean, it's like incredible. I can go on Twitter and say "poop from my pee hole," and now all of a sudden I'm famous, right? Like, so it's wild how that type of stuff where stupid shit can gain traction, but things that actually are impactful and things that are actually like mind-blowing get kind of swept under the rug. To your point, the UFO stuff from last year, it's like, hey, by the way, UFOs are real, and everyone's like, okay,
right,
like, that's cool, bro. And it's almost like one of those where I think a lot of people took it, because I took it this way. I took it as, yeah, no shit. Right? Like,
we know
there's way too much evidence out there for there not to be. Thanks for being 37,000 years late. Like,
right.
So now you can argue about where, what UFOs are. That's still a huge debate, right? But I think, the amount of people that are skeptical on UFOs, has decreased crazily over time. And I think a lot of people, even when the government came out last year and was like, hey, they're real, they're, or here's evidence, everyone's like, people that were on the fence were like, oh, okay, like, cool, but like, what are they, what are you gonna do? Like,
I just really wanted it to be like an Independence Day type of reveal. Like, everyone just stops what they're doing and they go outside and they look up to the stars and they're like, fuck, we're not alone. But nobody cared.
I feel like with stuff like that, like UFOs or this hologram stuff, like, it's gonna it takes too much work to even understand it. Or like you would definitely regardless, you would go down a rabbit hole, and most people aren't going to do that. Most people aren't going to do that about anything unless it like directly affects their life. Like, most people haven't even fucking researched COVID. Like, like they just kind of just wait to see what happens.
Yeah, dude, you got people that will or will not take a vaccine because they saw something on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, you're 100% right. Nobody does their own research. And, they see something, they're like, oh, that doesn't matter to me. And I'll be honest, like, there's a portion, I think everybody's like that in certain ways, right? Definitely. Me personally, I don't, I'm not big into drama stuff. Like, if you want to be like, oh, so-and-so said, I'm like, what does that have to do with me? I just don't care, right? Like, is it hurting me? Is it impacting me? No, then I just don't care about it,
Right.
But, like, when it comes to most people are just kind of they're so influential. Like, people can be influenced so easily, and we're conditioned to just always be so busy and, always doing things. And, you work, you have kids, or you take care of them, you have school stuff, you have this, you have, gym, you have, it's like we're always so conditioned to just continue to move. And like, I think that puts us in a position to not think about a lot of these things, where it's like, you sit down and, how much time do you actually, think about something? Most people, when they do sit down, they're just scrolling on Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And just seeing, like dumb articles and and then move along. Right. Like, sometimes
literally just trying to pass time.
Yeah. And it's like, and most people do it, it's so guilty of doing it. Like, they're out to dinner with their significant other and they're just on TikTok the entire time. It's like they can't even focus on something right in front of their face a lot of times, and social media has just, I think, trained people that way. Right. And, and it could be a huge distraction, and an influence, you could, like I said, that people just take it like, well, I read it on Instagram, so it's gotta be true, bro.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's one thing that's been tripping me out lately more and more, but like, not lately, it tripped me out over time, but now I think I'm accepting it more. It's just that, like, we live in the information age right now. Like, everything, you can find out anything from about anything, but people do not utilize it. Like, people are just as likely to ask you something that they could find themselves, and you could tell them the wrong thing and they just wouldn't know. Like, so it's just like, people are ignorant by choice now.
Right.
And the thing that trips me out about it is that, like, something doesn't, like, people can choose to believe anything that they want, and it does not have to be right, and nothing, like, it doesn't have to be right or true, and they can just be cemented in that belief. Like, you know, like, it's just the craziest thing ever to me. That's the craziest thing ever to me.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Like, someone could literally, like, if a person does not want to believe that UFOs are real, they will not believe it. Like, even if a UFO landed right in front of them, they'd be like, "Oh no, that's the government pulling some bullshit."
Oh yeah,
you know,
no.
like,
They'll come up with a reason why it didn't happen or why you know. Yeah, I was on some massive cocaine right there. You know, and I mean, you see that with everything though too, right? I mean, you know, we have family members, and I won't say names, but like, you know, we have family members where, you know, it's like the proof is right there in the face, and it's like, well, that's not what I think.
Right.
Okay.
That's such
you
a
know,
dangerous mindset.
Yeah, it's
right. It's like, but that's not what I think, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, and I think that's where, like, people, like, debates are healthy, and like debates are conversation, and that is healthy, like, but so, like, I feel like most people just have this mindset of like, if you don't agree with me, I'm just going to be mad at you about it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's easier to... most people don't like the confrontation, right? And most people, honestly, the reason why most people don't like debate is because they don't have anything to fucking back it up. Like, that's why.
Bro, yes.
Like,
it's
It's easier for them to be like, no, bro, you're wrong, and I don't even want to talk to you anymore, because they know the moment they get into a conversation, they have zero backup. Zero.
Yeah.
Because it would be like, bro, so tell me about, you know, tell me about it. Like, why do you feel that way? Like, what made you believe in that?
Yes.
I saw a Lifetime original movie about it, I guess, and it must be true.
Oh my fucking God.
You know, and it's like they don't have any facts whatsoever, and then, you know, that it's like we talked about the vaccines earlier, right, and COVID and things like that. It's like, that's anybody you talk to that is anti-vaccination, almost any of them cannot tell you why they're anti-vaccination.
Right.
They just can't tell you.
Or they'll tell you, and it literally, like, in actuality, won't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense.
And then because the burden of proof is on them. If they have a reason,
right?
Like, there's no burden of proof on me, dog. Like, I got data. I also have common sense.
Right. I mean, it's.
But then, like, you challenge their proof, and they get even more mad.
Well, I had a conversation with someone, I don't know, a few months back, and about the vaccine, and they're like, well, you know, I'm not getting it. And I was like, okay, well, just why? Like, what is your reasoning behind not getting it? And they're like, well, there's not enough data that tells me what happens when you get it. And I said, okay, I can understand that. There's plenty of data that tells you what happens when you get fucking COVID, though.
Right.
So are you going to tell me that whatever the vaccine data, once that comes up, is worse than that? I'm hedging my bet that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, right.
Like, so I get, you know, your point about what you're saying, but that means you didn't even look at the other set of data that of telling you why you should take it, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's incredible, you know.
Bro, I swear to God, bro, that tripped me out. What you just said tripped me out, because I have literally said that. I said that to Jesse. I've said that to my mom. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, most people don't even know why they think what they think. Like, it's just like, you can't explain. If you can't explain why you think what you think, how you arrived at that conclusion, then you're like, how do you even think for yourself? You know,
right,
like, that's insane.
I don't think, generally speaking, I think I'm gonna touch up on this real quick, and then we need to get back on that document.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Because I want to talk about that document so bad.
Okay.
I think that this is not my opinion. This is, I think, this is a well thought out thought. There's nothing wrong with people holding a position of opinion. There's nothing wrong with people having different opinions.
Of course,
like you said earlier, Josh. Like, people not having the same opinion is okay, because it could spark a debate, and then there's it's healthy. You can.
That's how laws get changed. That's how
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like that's how improvements are made to countries, to society, right? Like
you stop butting heads and you get together and you figure your shit out.
Yeah.
And guess what? One party is going to be wrong. Someone's going to be wrong, and that's okay because it's okay to be wrong.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with having an opinion. What is very harmful and toxic is to have a dogmatic opinion.
Yeah.
Like, dogma is what kills everything.
Yeah.
Because I have no problem with someone who is, say, religious. I have no problem with someone coming up to me and just saying that, well, hey, man, I believe in Jesus, and, like, that's my belief. But they're, like, a good person. Like, they give a shit about people. They're they take care of themselves. They're good conversationalists. They say hi to people. They're just good people. That's okay. I don't give a shit. Like, you can believe whatever you want. Because guess what? There's an atheist who has the same personality as well. They're good people.
Right.
What happens and what's toxic is people get that, like, dogmatic personality to where what you guys were saying, to where, well, I don't care. You're wrong. I'm right. And they don't listen to reason. That's dangerous as shit.
I feel like that. I'm gonna get this out and go back to the doc. Okay. Look,
tune in next episode
when we actually talk about what we wanted to talk about.
But I feel like that kind of highlights a difference, whether people are conscious of it or not, is that with dogmatic opinions, generally, I genuinely think that usually those people are trying to validate their own belief, because those are generally the people that arrived at that conclusion because someone put it in their head or something like that, usually, and then they're trying to force it on everyone else. Like a person that if a person like got to a certain state, like if I went from being like a criminal, right, to like reformed, and now I'm like a born again Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my journey, I would know that I could not force you to feel the same way, because like it took me something specific. Like I went down a path to get to this, so everyone's path is going to be different. Like something else might have the same effect on you, But I think that is where, like, with what Josh was saying about, like, that's why debates are healthy. But debates are healthy between people that know why they're thinking what they're thinking, because both what you're really debating in terms of that is like your experience, because like your experience is what led you to think what you think and not what the other person thinks. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I thought about this before, and it was like a brief thought, but the only reason I thought about that was because all the political stuff with like how people care about, or what people think about the police and all that shit, right? So you guys know this, all the stuff that was happening with the Gabby Petito girl, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I was seeing people sharing stuff like about like, oh yeah, that sucks, but why does no one ever care when this happens to a person of color? Like, this person was missing for over a year. The police didn't care. Like, nobody cared. They found her in a trunk a year later. And I was like, it's sad that this girl's like death has to be used as an example for something like that, regardless. So just to make the point, like, that shows why, like, that could be an example of why two different groups of people would have two different feelings towards the same thing. Because if the police take this one case seriously, but they don't take this case seriously, these people are going to feel one way about the police, and these people are going to feel like they're their heroes. You know what I'm saying? And then these two groups of people walk away, and then they run into each other, and then they have an argument, about the same thing, not realizing that that's what the cause was. Like, your experience was different. That's why you think differently about this thing.
And
this
experience, I believe Neil deGrasse Tyson said this once. an experience does not validate an objective truth. It just validates your subjective truth.
Right.
So
Your
like
personal truth.
Your personal truth.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. That you could use that ideology template for any
Almost
topic.
anything.
Any topic.
Yeah.
You could pick one and you could say, oh, that comes down to that too.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong
literally.
with that.
Well, and I think before we hop onto the actual topic, the last thing I'll say about it is that the reason why people are so dogmatic is because they're afraid of being wrong.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be wrong because of the embarrassment, because they've devoted 20 plus years or 30 plus years or however long of their life to this religion or to this belief or whatever it is, right? And then if they're proven wrong, they look like a fool. Right. And so, you read about people who, have been, I've read a lot about people who have been part of cults and things like that. And when they finally come to that realization of what they were in, right, and how they were duped, quite frankly, right, and they couldn't think for themselves. Like, that's part of all of that too, right? To going back to what we said, these people don't think for themselves. Right? They let whatever it is, whatever that thing is, they let it just spoon feed and think for them. Right? And when they finally come to that realization and get out, and occults are a very extreme version of this, right? But they're very telling about that experience yourself, your personal experience and your mind and how it opens. Like, they realize like their emotion they feel is shame. Is their emotion they feel. More than anything else. Like, not happiness to be out of there, not, whatever. It's shame that they allowed themselves to feel, to be a part of that, and it's incredible that that right there is a big roadblock of why most people cannot think for themselves, because they do not want to be wrong.
Right.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Definitely.
Side note. There's plenty of born-again Christians that are criminals.
Of course.
You had said if I went from a criminal to a born-again Christian.
I thought, for a second, I honestly thought you said porn-again Christian. And I was like, there's plenty of those.
Hell
there's plenty of those. Yeah.
I think the majority of people on OnlyFans are born. Never mind. Raising money for Jesus.
Yeah.
It's okay. God
funding my missions trip with my feet.
All right.
Funding my missions trip. Jesus fucking Christ.
A couple things on this document that is blowing my mind. It's things I've always been interested in. But your mind should always be blown by something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember who said it. Some scientist said this a long time ago. I don't remember who it was. I guess I'm not that smart. They said that, like, when you're learning stuff, it should always be, like, it should always create, like, that spark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some people, it's in the form of doing a million different hobbies in a row. Just like, oh, I'm done with that, and I'm going to do this. I'm done with that, I'm going to do this. We all know someone who's like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But like for me, it's always like the same topics, but I feel like there's just never ending shit that just like blows my mind. And that CIA document was like a Christmas present. Like it was like, yeah, bro, like you don't need to buy me anything ever. Like, because it could be 5 years from now, and you could be like, bro, remember that document? I'll be like, like, bro, like I'm still thinking about that document. Like the interdimensional thing. Mm-hmm. Like that's always been something that has been like interesting to me, like dimensions. Yeah. So, like we all learned about dimensions with, mathematics, geometry, things like that, years and years ago in school. Of course that wasn't fun, but I still don't like math to this day. Mm-hmm. But it's needed to understand certain things, but thinking about it in a realistic setting, like, okay, we're not just writing about dimensions, we're going to put it in perspective to the reality that we live in.
Yeah.
And thinking about that is crazy to me. I remember it was probably like last year. My daughter started talking about dimensions, and she was saying like, well, what type of world do we live in? And I said, well, to you and me, average people, it's a 3-dimensional space that we live in.
Yeah.
I said, but there's dimensions within dimensions. I said, scientifically, we live in a 4-dimensional world because we have time.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't see it. So like, we don't ever think of being in a 4-dimensional space, because that 4th dimension is interacting with our world in a way that we don't know.
You're right.
We can't see it.
Right.
But like, dimensions in itself are always like so cool to think about, like, because we are a 3-dimensional type of mind.
Yeah.
We're stuck in those parameters. There's so many other dimensions that mathematically you can theoretically say that they exist because of the math, but you can't explain them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can go up to a 5th, like, explaining it,
yeah,
but we can't like draw it. We can't tell you what it would be like to be in.
Right.
Because we can't get past that dimensional plane in our own mind.
Yeah.
Which like got me to think, when you sent me that document, these hypnosis, transcendental meditation, right? Transcendental meditation, excuse me. And biofeedback, maybe that's a way. Never mind, I'm not an expert whatsoever on any of these topics. Maybe that is a way for our brain to get past that 3 and 4th, I wouldn't even say 4th, that 3-dimensional type of plane of thinking and reality.
Yeah.
Like, so you think of like psychedelics, and like how they get you into that other state of mind,
mm-hmm.
because they're bypassing, I believe how it works, it bypasses the right side of the brain, kind of numbs it, which is like the decision-making brain, and it just opens up the left.
It's the other
or
way
is
around.
it the other way around?
It's the other way
My
around.
apologies. So the other way around, so that way it basically, all of your thoughts and imaginations and judgments, they go unchecked.
Yeah.
They go completely unchecked.
Yep.
Because our brain is constantly calculating, it's constantly looking at things, finding patterns. Our brain is designed to try to figure shit out in a 3-dimensional space. But like, once you get into that other state of mind, I'm like wondering if maybe it's like, oh my god, we're seeing everything in a different light.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had a trip before. I've never done psychedelics. I've never done anything that would alter like my mental status, besides obviously like alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
But like, they must, I don't know. I feel like maybe that's how it's happening. Like,
yeah, I mean, you think about it though, right? Like, we only use 10% of our brain, right? And so, even the most, the people that we would think are the smartest people, Einstein as an example. I mean, do you know what percent of his brain he used? 15. I mean,
dude, that makes me feel so stupid.
So like, I mean, yeah, the most smartest and brilliant people and stuff, have been able to stretch it to that paltry 15%, right? I mean, it's just incredible when you think about it, and like, you like how your brain can do so much more than what it does.
Yeah.
Right. And what's the reason behind that? Obviously we don't know, right? I mean, there's still so much out there, but you can't, like, your brain, to your point, can't think about these things in that way. What's interesting though is, I like other dimensions and things like that. At this point, going back to what we said earlier, right, about like UFOs, things like that, I feel that we're not too far away from an actual other dimension thing that shows up, and it's like, we have proof there's other dimensions, and people go, okay.
Right.
Like,
man, you're probably right.
Because it's all over the place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and in this, to where it's ingrained in our heads. Even though our brains can't process it, we have been shown it so many times in so many different formats. Think about the Matrix, think about the MCU, think about this, right? All these different things that could point to it. Where like something like this could actually come out not that far in the future, and people would go, well, Spider-Man did it, so okay.
Right.
You know, like, but they're not thinking for themselves though in that regard, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I think certain physicists have always said that warping through a dimension or time travel is literally it's not a science problem anymore, because they figured out that it's completely possible. It's just an engineering problem now. So the fact that we are so close, we're on the cusp of understanding how to literally bend space-time, that I'll put it like this. So you got this table and there's a pile of books, and we're gonna cover the table with all the books, and I filled up that two-dimensional space with the books, but I have more books. Well, to a two-dimensional creature, like a bug, is gonna see that, oh my god, there's no more space in my two-dimensional world. There's no more room because the table falls off, it drops. There's no room to put my books. Well, then a three-dimensional creature like us could come by and take those books and say, I got it, I'll stack them on one another, up on top of one another in a three-dimensional space. Well, to us that's normal, because we're bro, there's more room up here.
Yeah.
But then to the two-dimensional creature, the bug, they're gonna be where the fuck are all these books going? They're going into this dimension that I can't see. Well, if an ant had a better brain, not knocking on ants, they're hard workers. If they had a three-dimensional type of brain that could think that way, they would start building ladders, and they would start building platforms, and they would build a fucking elevator to get to the top of the book stack. And then you go, oh shit, the books are just up there in the third-dimensional plane.
Right.
Well, there's nothing literally unrealistic about so the difference between us and a monkey is 1% DNA. But if you think, okay, well, that's completely possible because it's real, so we know that it's possible. We also know that it's completely not only possible, but it is real, that there has to be other alien life out there, just based on even if you don't even want to talk bro, I just love alien. No, look at the math, and based on math and cosmology, bro, they're out there. They have to be out there. Right. It would literally be the biggest fucking joke if it was just empty space-time with nothing on trillions and trillions of planets with 16, oh man, I don't even remember the number, 16 over, I gotta remember, I said it one time before, I did the math on it, a quintillion, 16 quintillion planets in the known universe right now. Yeah. That's 18 zeros on the end of that. There has to be aliens out there. So with that probability, what's to say that there isn't just a species that is another 1% higher than us, and they're going to take shit and be bro, you ran out of room because you hit the ceiling with all these books. I got it.
Well,
and we're where did the fucking book go? Because we can't think in that dimension.
The way that I thought about that was just when I was listening to the way that Neil deGrasse Tyson explained it. So he said that in terms of space, it's there's two dots, right? Those have no dimensions. Mm-hmm. But then you draw a line between the two dots. Now it's one dimension because it's length. And then you draw another set of lines and then connect them. Now they have length and height. But then you turn it into a cube, and now it has length, height, and width. So now it's 3D. But then in our world, the fourth dimension is time, but we see time as linear. So what if there was a higher dimensional being, maybe time isn't linear to them. So maybe when you start stacking books up, they move it through time instead of moving it through space.
But it's so sad because we don't
There's no
know
way for us to know
because
that.
Our brains are cannot compute, because we're just on this three-dimensional fuck boat,
and
we're just stuck, Oh my god.
Well, we know we can go back. We know how old our planet is, right? As far as how long, we as what we know as humans have been around, right? I mean, that has been scientifically proven, right? And whether you believe in God creating the universe or a Big Bang or whatever, right? And of course those timelines between when that was created and that was created are completely different. But like, even whether you believe in the Big Bang or whether you believe in a higher power created the universe and everything and all these universes, you're going to tell me that in both of those scenarios they picked one planet to fucking have people.
Right, yeah.
Or any kind of intelligent species, right? Like, I find that's so far-fetched. Like,
it's so arrogant.
It is so
it's
arrogant.
Really arrogant.
And like, and again, most people that believe, in a Big Bang type of theory, right? They're more attuned to say there's probably life out there elsewhere, right? Because the math just doesn't make sense for there not to be, right? There are some that might not believe that, but I think for the most part, those people are more open to that, right? It's the people that generally believe in a higher power creating the universe that have a little bit harder time, and they'll use things like, well, the Bible says, well, guess what? The Bible was written by a dude using 10% of his brain.
On Earth.
Okay? Like, on Earth. Yeah. And, like, the Bible wasn't written by the higher power.
Right.
And you can try to tell me all you want, well, the higher power told, that God told. Okay, that's cool. It was still, I can say that God told me to do X, Y, and Z, but I have no proof that actually happened.
Yeah.
Right? And so, anything that, people want to use, and again, when you have a conversation, you have a debate about people, about life beyond planet Earth, most people from that higher power standpoint cannot tell you why they believe it. Right? They don't, because there are no facts, there are no science, and there is no math that makes that check out. There just isn't.
Well, that's why they call it faith, right?
Right. Right. And that's right. Well, I believe on faith. Well, you know what? Tell me how much, how are you paying your rent every month on faith since you decided to be lazy and not work?
Bro, I've heard that before.
I've heard that before.
Right?
People say, like, it's on faith. Be like, no, it's because you have a job.
But no, the one thing, like, I've said this to him before. I said this to my family recently, too. And I know eventually, like, if I say this, somebody's going to get mad about it. But I think that, like, with this kind of shit, with, like, the hologram kind of shit, and all, like when you dig into the universe and all that kind of stuff, I would not say that, like, I don't believe that there's a God, but I think that the way that humans think of God is like the Nick Jr. version of God. Like, there is no way that we would be able to, if there's a God, there is no way we would be able to understand him at all.
If we can't figure out
like,
space-time,
we can't even, we don't understand our Earth, our universe. Like, we've come to understand our bodies, like, significantly, but that's just like a baby step. Like, there's no fucking way.
We can't even throw out our trash the right way.
No, I mean, literally, God would be the guy, if you're playing Call of Duty, that's running around whipping everyone's ass, going, "You trash, kid, you trash." That would be, you couldn't fathom the skill set. You couldn't fathom like the comprehension, right? I mean, if there is a higher power like that higher power is not using 10% of a brain. Right. Okay?
Right.
If they even have a brain, right? I mean, so, like, you can't even fathom it.
Even with, like, what Jesse said, like, so, like, I watched a video where Neil deGrasse Tyson said the same kind of thing, but he said that, like, so we're 1% off from monkeys, right? That 1%, what if, like, our intelligence, our differences in in intelligence is just 1% between a monkey and a chimp, and like look at how different we operate versus chimps, right? And like the smartest chimp to us can do shit that a baby can do. Like that's the smartest chimp. So if there was a life form that was 1% ahead of us, like we wouldn't even be able to fathom them. Right. So like, what would fucking God be? You know, like we're and we would probably think that they were God, like if that was the case.
Well, and that's how God-like figures happen. These people who have unlocked close to 15% of their brains, they become that figure. Like that's why we have these people that, you know, whether you want to call it God or Muhammad or whatever you want to call it, right? These literal figures where Jesus on the earth was probably not a 10% brain guy. Yeah. Okay? Probably not. Maybe he was 11. Maybe he was 12. Maybe he just kind of looked cool and said the right shit. I don't know. Right? But like people believed,
very successful psychopath.
Right. People believed in what he said because he had an aura about him that was they had never seen before. So he must be something better. He must be something special. And not that those figures are not, right? Because there is truth to some of that stuff. Like that stuff is not just completely false and made up, right? There is something to it, right? It's not exactly what we've been taught, but there is something to it. And I think, you know, but if Jesus was legitimately God on the earth, people wouldn't have been able to comprehend the dude. Like, I mean, you know, and things like, you know, turning water into a wine, that's in a 12% brain guy. You know what I mean? Like, how do we not know that? Right? I mean, but we can't fathom it, and because our brains can't fathom it, we believe that he's the one we should worship. Like, I mean, or whoever, they're the person we should worship because we've never seen this. I can't even fathom how this is possible, so they must not be from here. Right? They must be something completely different and something to be worshipped.
Yeah. No, definitely. So I think that maybe like what you were saying, I can definitely say that like with the psychedelic stuff, it does change your, like, you can't even put it into words. Like space time feels
that's the
different.
whole thing behind like why they've always been illegal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With our government. Like because maybe it would keep us from knowing about actual reality.
Yeah.
Or like it would keep us from understanding things that, you know, like, hey, you know what? I understand this now. I don't give a fuck about doing this or that. You know, like, I mean, maybe there's something behind that. I don't know.
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, governments were put in place for control, right? I mean, that is the point of governments in any capacity, is for control. And that's not a bad thing, you know, in theory, right?
Yeah.
But they take it, you know, to an extent that robs, I think, humans from reaching their full potential a lot of times, because they're, you know, to your point, like, you know, I mean, there has to be rules, right? There has to be, you know, you can't, hey, look back at multiple points within our human history. Anytime there's not rules, crazy fucking shit happens. Okay? Wow. Like, so there has to be rules and regulations and things like that. You know, and even with psychedelics as the example, you know, there still has to be rules and regulations around psychedelics. You can't just have an open book where people are like tripping on acid driving a car, right? I mean, like, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Right? But it's interesting because I don't know if you guys have watched this show that just recently came out on Hulu called 9 Perfect Strangers. Mm-hmm. If you haven't watched it, it's only 8 episodes and it's done now. So like you can watch the whole thing. It was one of those release every week type thing, right? It's a pretty good show, but it stars Nicole Kidman and a few others. The basis of this show is this is like a retreat place where people come, they've tried rehab, they've tried this, they've, whatever, right? So she invites all these people with different issues, right? Like some have issues with drugs, some have issues with family issues, death in the family, a suicide, whatever, right? All these different issues. She brings these people together, and the reason she brings them together at this retreat, and it's one where people apply to go to this place, but she handpicks these people, right? And she uses, without their knowledge, psychedelics to bring out what is actually going on with these people. And what she's trying to achieve is a different plane of existence herself to connect with someone else, right? And by doing these psychedelics and the measuring what is happening with these people and how it's happening is helping her get all this data and research to understand how she can connect on a different plane with people she has lost.
Wow.
Right? And it's pretty incredible to see. And again, the show is pretty good. I mean, it's not like, I wouldn't say it's like 10 out of 10 or anything like that, because there's some weirdness to it, right? But like, it's interesting if you like kind of read the article that we were talking about today, and then you watch this show, which for me, it was the opposite. I watched the show, and as I was reading this article, I'm like, I feel like I just watched this article on TV. Like, and at a certain point, though, what's interesting is she actually tells them what she's doing.
Oh, wow.
And the interesting part is at the time she tells them what she's doing, and let's call it halfway through the show, what happens is, how can you do this to us? I can't, you're giving us drugs, like you're doing this or whatever. By the end of that episode, almost every single one of those people, and let's call it 8 different people, are completely okay with it because of what they've experienced and what they've, seen, heard, whatever, because that was real to them while it happened. It put them on a completely different level of existence that they've never experienced, and they wanted more. Like they wanted to be able to connect with people or whatever it is, right? Whatever their issues were. So I recommend it. Like, recommend just watching it because it's interesting to see. Again, it's a Hollywood TV show, right? Great acting in it and whatever. But it's interesting to see how psychedelics can, to the point that we were talking about just a little bit ago, they can open your mind to a completely different plane of existence that I think the majority of humans have never experienced.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a reason where people who are on psychedelics and stuff like that, they call people call them crazy, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a reason, because they don't act like in our brain, we can't comprehend what they're doing. Right. And I'm not saying that there are people that take that stuff and do bad things. Like I said, regulations and all those, it's still important. But like, I think there should be a regulatory way, for people to experience things like that, right? I mean, hallucination, not hallucination. Sorry. Oh my gosh, it's in the article.
Hypnosis?
Hypnosis, thank you. Hypnosis is another way, right? I mean, where you get down into that subconscious level, right? But the drugs, like, almost induce it immediately.
Yeah, that's...
Right? Like, that's the thing. Like, that's the kicker, right? And it also puts you in a state where you ain't coming out of that bad boy so that drug's out of your system, right? Like, hypnosis, you can kind of... Like, if something weird happens or you don't like it, you can almost kind of pull yourself out of that state, right? And kind of shock the system, right? Like when you're falling asleep and you feel like all of a sudden you jolt up, right? Like your body is trying to fall asleep, but something within you doesn't want it to, or whatever, your brain, and like jolts you awake, right? It's that same type of thing with hypnosis where you can kind of eject yourself out of that hypnosis state at a certain point. With the drugs, you can't. Like, you are stuck in that state, right? Until it works through your system and whatever. And so, I think that, if there was regulatory ways where people could use that, I think, there would be more of a level of understanding of what the brain can do and how it can do it. Because I can tell you, I mean, from you talk to anybody who's done it, or from my own personal experience, there is nothing like it.
Yeah,
like
it's the most surreal thing, and I did it for a purpose. Like I was using, I did ketamine treatments for depression.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not fucking joking. My depression was gone like that.
Oh yeah.
Like the first session, and it was a low dose, and I was just like, bye, and then like.
Yep.
But like the thing about it is it can really like help you see things from another perspective. It does open your mind up to an extent. It's really fucking crazy.
It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
It's genuinely fascinating. And then that's the thing, like just to bring it back to the article real quick, like that it does, like space-time is not what it is when you're in this normal mindset.
No.
It's like not a thing. Like
time does not exist.
Yeah, it's just not a thing. Like
right.
It's just like an open field. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're in the moment, but you're only in the moment. There's nothing else. Like there's nothing coming after, there's nothing before.
Right. And one of the most common things you'll hear from people that have done that, right, and is that they had no sense of time.
At all.
That is one of the most common, and from my personal experience and yours as well, right? Like, I can tell you that's the exact. That is the one thing I can tell you 100% I recall is no sense of time.
Right.
Right. Like you may not recall everything that happened or the things, you know what I mean? Because especially if it's your first time, but just like anything else, right? You over time you learn how to like get better with it. You learn how to control it. You learn how to do this. Like. Yeah, your first time, you are just like, I mean...
Just floating, right?
Oh, man, you might as well just be a beach whale at that point. Right. I mean, sitting there drooling on yourself half the time. Yeah. But, like, the biggest thing is you have it consistently when you read about people or talk to people that have experienced that is that there was no sense of time, right? Which, again, is that dimensional thing where our normal brains cannot wrap our head around no sense of time.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what blows my mind is that the CIA release document says that you can get into the interdimensional state by doing A, B, and C, and about 100 other fucking things that will blow our minds. And we definitely need to talk about it more in depth. I think when we do talk again, definitely I want to touch up on the cosmic egg idea, because that is one of the most potent pieces of data that I have ever researched in my adult life.
Yeah,
like that has actually changed my perspective on several things, like academically, like, and so now personally.
Yeah.
So we unfortunately do need to cut this. Michael, it was as always a pleasure to talk.
Likewise.
Come back again.
That was awesome.
I promise the next time that we're talking, we're going to have more notes. More shit to talk about. I'm telling you, and I can probably speak for myself and Josh. We're not done reading that document.
Yeah, definitely.
No, for sure. Yeah.
There is so much. It almost sucks that we decided to talk about it so early
after,
because there is so much stuff.
I'm not even joking. I'm probably going to have to read that 5 times. Like,
I haven't stopped reading it. You sent it to me 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I've
I mean,
been reading bits of it
it's funny. That article is similar to what we're talking about. How your brain just can't comprehend it the first time.
It
right?
can't.
I mean,
so
it's
I have to keep rereading stuff, and I'm going through things that I already know.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, how can I make this connection?
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's taking me a while.
Still miss things, you know, like.
Oh yeah, dude. There's tons of shit that I missed the first time I was reading about the Earth is the world that we live in now is a hologram. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. And then like I read it literally a third time. When I got to the third time, I was like, holy shit! Like it actually that could be a possibility because ABC.
Right.
And now I'm connecting all these dots. So.
Yep.
But again, this was a good conversation.
Yeah, it's been great.
I got tons of shit that I still need to look into. But as always, it's always good talking to you.
Likewise.
Appreciate you making the trek all the way over here. You live in the sticks now. He lives in another dimension.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I do too. It's called Texas.
I play with time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for coming on. This was a banger of a first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot wait to talk more. Can't wait to keep recording and talking more shit. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on the social media. Soon to be YouTube once we get things up and running, but mostly YouTube and Twitch in the future.
Yes.
We're hoping. So appreciate you. And all
Yes,
that
sir.
you do, sir.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.